LeBron James.
Scream if you love One Night at Flumpty's.
Hello everyone, my name is Bashan, and about a month ago, I made a video going over the unused content of ONAF 1, and you guys absolutely smashed it out of the park with that one. Now, with the 10th year anniversary of One Night at Flumpty's being just around the corner here, and probably today at the time I'm releasing this video, I think it is the perfect time to finish what I started and go over the unused content surrounding the next two games, that being One Night at Flumpty's 2 and One Night at Flumpty's 3, all in one video. Now, like before, most of the information will be coming from JonoChrome's developer commentary videos on both ONAF 2 and ONAF 3, and without further ado, go grab your pet owl and snapshots, scramble that like button, and let's get into even more ONAF unused content. Like I said in my first video on this trilogy, when the release build of the first two games came out, they had various pop culture references contained within them, which all ended up getting removed and replaced when One Night at Flumpty's ended up getting invited to the FNAF Fanverse initiative. Anyways, at the first stop in this video, let's look at the unused and altered content starting with One Night at Flumpty's 2. Now, like I said, when ONAF 2 initially released on April 11th, 2015, literally only 3 months after the first game came out, it also had various pop culture references to various properties, as you can see from this early screenshot right here. You got everything from a dead piglet doll that has its stomach ripped open revealing its intestines somehow, a Pac-Man poster, a Coca-Cola bottle, which when I first played I thought was a pair of toy chattering teeth with a spike going through it. Yeah, don't ask me how I messed that up. There's also a coffee cup with, I believe, a McDonald's logo, but I can't say that for sure, but I guess it's copyrighted. There is also a dead Luigi on Camp 6, which I believe is from Five Nights at Wario's, but I can't say that for sure as I never played it. Fun fact, Five Nights at Wario's is one of the main inspirations as to why JonoChrome created One Night at Flumpty's in the first place. Now, finally, there is a trophy head of Freddy, which surprisingly wasn't removed and changed in the remaster. Now, my only explanation as to why this was allowed in the paid version of ONAF is because since Scott was the one who invited JonoChrome to the Fanverse, he possibly allowed JonoChrome to use his characters as Easter eggs in his games. Next up, we got an entirely unused original character that was supposed to be in this game, and that character was the Blind Monster, rocking a probable placeholder name as well. Originally, he was supposed to walk down the hallway, similar as to how Bland does in this game, after he checks in on you and all. But with this guy, you weren't supposed to make any noise while he was passing on through, or else he'd jump scare you, go figure. Now, the reason as to why this character got canned was actually because JonoChrome stated that this character's mechanic could slow down the gameplay. But I also feel it could also be because this character would make you vulnerable to basically everybody else, especially on hard-boiled mode. Additionally, the Fireside Flumpty cone in the Flumpty Night of the third game actually took some inspiration from the Blind Monster concept art, with having the stitched eyes. There is also speculation that the Blind Monster was possibly an early version of the eyesore, as when JonoChrome was creating him, he stated that the Blind Monster was supposed to reside in the same room as the eyesore that was in the final. But there is also the possibility that he was already planned to be in the game with the eyesore, which I gotta say, wouldn't be very fun to deal with. Also, don't worry, we'll be getting back to this character again in a little bit here. Next up, we got a mechanic for Grunkfist in this game that also goes unused. Now, when JonoChrome was first planning out the second game of One Night at Flumpty's, he initially had the idea to just give Grunkfist the wind-up music box mechanic from FNAF 2. Now, the reason as to why this was scrapped was because JonoChrome stated that he disliked the music box mechanic and thought it was overused in many FNAF fan games. Now, I'm honestly glad that JonoChrome went through with scrapping this mechanic and replacing it with the patience meter, as it is 100 times more original, and also really gives a lot of personality to Grumpus in the process. Now last up for ONAF 2 are some early screenshots for when the game was still in development, as well as some teasers that were shown before the game's initial release. First up, we got some concept art of Blam's various positions for when he is in Cam 6, an early version of Cam 3, an early version of The Office, which is all blue for some reason, and what's really interesting about this one is that the light switch was originally supposed to be on the left. It was just supposed to be a panel, like how they were in ONAF 1. And finally, we have an early teaser for ONAF 2, which shows Flumpty with strangely white pupils. And I gotta say, something with this Flumpty just doesn't sit right with me. Now switching gears over to One Night at Flumpty's 3, it turns out the scrapped blind monster that we went over a little bit ago was considered being added for the third game. And the reason as to why he was scrapped once again here was because JonoChrome couldn't find a way to put his mechanic into the gameplay. Don't worry, blind fella. Maybe one day you'll be put into ONAF fan games somewhere down the line here. It's also worth noting that when JonoChrome was making this third game, he didn't want to include any new characters into the gameplay, as he truly wanted to make this a send-off to all the characters of ONAF that we all know and love. Also, the B-Vowel doesn't count, as he's just a combination of two separate already existing characters. And while we're on the topic of the B-Vowel, he actually has quite an interesting development history, as originally, JonoChrome wanted to bring back both the owl as well as the beaver. Now, if you didn't already know, the beaver was supposed to come back as a mummy in the now cancelled One Week at Flumpty's, made by JonoChrome. But I guess he wasn't in this game, and that he was supposed to be his regular self, all good as new, even though he was possibly killed by Flumpty? Anyways, while this concept was still in mind, there were several ideas for how the two characters would work, such as the owl going down the hall while the beaver takes the vent, owl being in his own separate unused room, and then taking a separate vent connected to your office. And finally, just the beaver and the owl using the same vent just at different times. Now, JonoChrome couldn't figure out how to make these characters work while also being unique, as they both were pretty similar. So JonoChrome had the idea to just combine them into the vowel. Oh yeah, a name concept for the B vowel was the bowel, which honestly rolls off the tongue quite well. But JonoChrome decided to just stick with the B vowel because it sounds stupider, which is a very Flumpty thing to do. All in all, the B-Vowel character really wraps the two characters a nice stitched bow. See what I did there? And it really works with the lore of the beaver. And lastly, for the B-Vowel, we got an unheard extended version of his jump scare sound, which has a little yelp at the end, which isn't heard as the jump scare cuts off before it plays. Have a listen. Now for the final stop in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the game's Flumpty Night, and I gotta say, this section probably has the most found, in quotes, content that I went over in my 1 Week at Flumpty's Lost Media video, as JonoChrome wanted Flumpty Night to be what he couldn't do for 1 Week at Flumpty's, which is also planned to have a Flumpty Night. So here we go. First up, we got the mechanic of the rooms that were supposed to swap places around the map, which was used for both Cam 8A as well as Cam 8B. The hallways being starry like in 1 Week at Flumpty's, the laser door from Cam 4, as well as in The Office, which are also in The Office in this game, and lastly, the room with all the circuits and wires, which became Cam 9. Next up, we got an early version of the Eggs and Bacon soundtrack, which had a more whimsical sounding vocals. Take a listen. Now last and certainly not least, we're going to be taking a look at some concept art for Flumpty Night that was made. First up, we got a concept sketch of Flumpty's jump scare, which is originally supposed to have spiders coming out of him, which would have been pretty unsettling to see. And lastly, we got some concept sketches of the night itself, showing off many unused plans for Flumpty Night, which I'll go over some of them here. So first up, there were plans for the flashlight that turned the Flumpty clones into stone temporarily. So not only was there going to be an unused flashlight, but maybe there was a mechanic where you would have to keep the Flumpties at bay. The pile of Flumpty's dead friends were originally supposed to be in Cam 1 instead of Cam 6. The laptop was originally supposed to have a battery like in ONAF 2, and the most interesting aspect of these plans that went unused was that Golden Flumpty was originally supposed to play a pretty big role in this night, as there is quite a bit of unused mechanics featuring him for this night. So maybe originally, because he was in Egg 2, Flumpty spared him and let him join his new gang of clones. But as we all know, Flumpty ended up killing him off too. So sorry Golden Flumpty, maybe you'll get that comeback you deserve in the upcoming 1 Week of Flumpty's fan made. And with that, wraps up the unused content surrounding all the official One Night of Flumpty's games. Making these videos were a whole lot of fun, and really makes me excited for the One Night of Flumpty's 10th anniversary, which should be today at the time this video comes out. I gotta say, without One Night of Flumpty's, I don't think I'd be where I am today, and I really have to thank JonoChrome for that. Also, with the fan-made version of 1 Week of Flumpty's finally coming out this year, I think it really makes this 10th anniversary a lot more special. Now, while we're on the topic of 1 Week of Flumpty's, since the game has been in the works for almost a decade here, I suspect it will have a bunch of unused content. So much so, it should warrant its own standalone video. So please, Sibley, or anyone a part of the 1 Week of Flumpty's dev team watching this video, please let us explore the files of your game, as I bet you have quite a bit of interesting stuff hiding in there that goes unused. Anyways guys, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.